IDPA is a brilliant on-ramp into the world of practical shooting, so in this video I'll give you a snapshot of kind of the state of play with IDPA and a peek at the gear I'm going to be using to compete in the 2025 IDPA National Championship. Be sure you're subscribed because I'm going to be posting a play-by-play as 4 shooters compete for the 2025 Carry Optics National Championship, and if you follow my B channel you can see my match video there as well. When I first started shooting competitions, I started shooting at a local indoor gun club that hosted a weekly IDPA match, so it really got my feet wet in the world of practical shooting. I'm obviously still doing that today, and I can say that there's not a better hobby I'm aware of that gets you out with friends and shows you the gap between how good you think you are and how good you actually are. IDPA is designed to be a game that is approachable and anyone can play. The engagements in the game are usually close to middle distance targets, and match directors try to make this interesting through the use of props and moving targets. You don't have to be a bullseye shooter or a speed demon to get out and compete. You just need to be a somewhat competent shooter and a very safe, competent gun handler. For a bit of history, IDPA started in the late 90s as a spin-off from the International Practical Shooting Confederation, or IPSC, or in the United States as it's called, the United States Practical Shooting Association, which is USPSA. IDPA started as a response to the ridiculous arms race that USPSA was going through in the late 90s, and supposed to be a sport that you could get into without the really high cost barriers. All that you needed to show up was a pistol, a belt mount holster, 3 magazines, and a couple mag pouches. The sport restricts the total foot travel on each stage so that the stages don't turn into a track meet, and there is guidance for engagements being too far away so that it doesn't turn into a bullseye match. Pretty much any commonly available pistol can find a home in the game and be reasonably or even very competitive. If you've got a full-size pistol or a compact, you've probably got enough gun to be competitive. And as somebody who's tested high-end guns with kind of mid-range or low-end guns, there's not a huge difference in performance. It's largely in the comment section where it's believed, but when you put it on a shot timer, the gap doesn't really show up. All you need is decent gear and not monkeying with the gun so that they stop working. Generally speaking, if somebody's gun's not working at a match, it's because they improved it. So the way it works is a match is comprised of stages. Each stage is up to 18 rounds, and it is a time plus game, meaning that time is adjusted for accuracy. So hits on target are scored with points, and you want no points. Points are a bad thing in this case, and the 0 zone in the center of the target and on the head box are worth no points. Just outside of that is 1 point, so 1 second per hit in that area, and the edge of the target is 3 points. If you miss the target entirely, then that's 5 seconds, or if you hit a non-threat target, which will have 2 black hands on it, that is also worth 5 points, and the bullets pass through and score on the target. So if there's a non-threat laid across a threat target, and you punch through the non-threat into the threat target, it scores on both targets. Minor procedural penalties like foot faults or shooting targets out of sequence are penalized with a procedural error, which are worth 3 points or 3 seconds. And just like golf, the lowest score wins. The clock starts running at the beep and stops running on your last shot fired. Typically at major matches, there is usually a prize table, and it's written in the rule book that you cannot just link match finish to prizes, so it's not just a kind of welfare system where everybody sponsors the top end guys getting prizes. It's almost sometimes a door prize system or a raffle. So, I mean, my second major match, I won a certificate that I could redeem for a Glock. The game is designed to be as safe as this kind of thing can be through use of a buddy system. The gun is carried in the holster with the hammer down or striker released, and that is called a cold range. And you're not allowed to manipulate it unless you're under the direct supervision of a safety officer. When they issue the range commands of load and make ready,
range is hot! Load and make ready.
That is your cue that you have somebody else's eyes on you and they can watch you charge the gun and get ready to shoot the stage. Similarly, you don't just put the gun back in the holster without first having a second set of eyes validate that the chamber is unloaded.
Unloaded, show clear. If clear, slide for trigger and holster.
Nowhere else on the range can you handle the firearm except for the safe area, which is typically used for unbagging and bagging guns at the end of the match. Some people use it to dry fire practice a little bit, get some draws in, and sometimes it turns into a workbench for equipment that stops working. Competitors can load their magazines anywhere on the range except for the safe area. Each stage is going to have a stage brief that talks about the start condition of the firearm, start position of the competitor, and what has to happen on the stage. Because the sport is intended to be modeled after kind of self-defense situations, shooters must shoot from positions of cover when there are available, and they're noted by fault lines that are on the ground. Shooting from cover means that you're shooting the targets from outside in, so that would be right to left when shooting from the right of a barricade, or left to right from the left side of the barricade. If a shooter finds themselves in the open, then the targets must be engaged from near to far. And if you fail to follow that order of engagement, there is a procedural penalty. The best thing to do is talk to the safety officer during the stage brief and ask your questions then, and burn it into your mind with a plan. While you're shooting, standard gun safety rules apply. You can't point the gun at yourself or anybody else. When you manipulate objects like door handles or open windows, there's a muzzle exclusion zone where you can't point the muzzle of the gun into. As the shooter advances downrange, there is an invisible 180 line that travels with you that is parallel to the back berm, and the muzzle cannot cross the 180 line. As you're moving, you have to get your finger outside of the trigger guard, and that's pretty much it. If you follow those rules, you will not disqualify yourself. If you break those rules, I'm sorry, but you have disqualified yourself. If you fall and drop the gun, unfortunately, that's unsafe gun handling and a disqualification. The game brackets itself into divisions, and you're not competing against everybody in the match but the people in your division, and then in the division you're bracketed into classifications, and they're also competing within your classification as well, so there's kind of a game within a game. The classifications kind of from lowest to highest is going to be novice, marksman, sharpshooter, expert, master, and if you place extremely well at a national championship match or international championship match, you can have the title of distinguished master, but you cannot classify it as that. You have to earn it through match performance.
So IDPA classifies based off a standard 5x5 classifier. It is 4 strings at 10 yards, concealment's not required. And I'll just show you what it looks like. I've been shooting, but I haven't been shooting from a holster or anything like that. So 15 rounds in the first mag, 10 in the second usually gets it done. That's 13:31 plus 2 down, so my adjusted time would be 15:31, still a master score. Normally I don't drop points, so it's a little disappointing, but you get the idea.
Your raw time for each of the 4 strings is added up, plus the points that you shot on the target, and then there are brackets that bracket you based on performance. And that's just for your initial classification. If you're able to win your class at a major match beating so many people, there's a math formula in the rule book, then you can actually get a promotion based on your finish in the match. And that's kind of a thing that people get into where they initially classify, then they just kind of grind their way up through major matches to advance in the classification. Some people really enjoy doing it, but I would just say to you, just get classified at your current skill. Because if you don't do that, then you're sandbagging, and sandbagging is just kind of denying the people who are fairly classified a chance to compete for their class. The most popular division in IDPA is currently carry optics, which is basically a slide ride optic mounted on a full-size gun that fits into this box with a magazine. The round capacity is constrained to 10 rounds in each magazine, plus 1 in the gun to start if it's a loaded start. So a competitor is going to step to the line with effectively 11 rounds in the gun and 20 rounds and reloads on their belt. The other divisions can be a little bit different on capacity, so check the rule book for what the requirements are. And there's no way past it. You've noticed the goofy vest in the shooting footage, and that's because IDPA, being a defensive sport, is intended to have a concealed carry component. So in the 90s, when the game was invented, the best concealment garment was a vest. A vest, unfortunately, is a super useful garment to conceal belt ride gear, so that is what a lot of people wear, but it's not required. Appendix carry is greenlit for the sport, and you can just use your t-shirt and your concealed carry rig if you want to check it out. So for your first match, you don't have to do anything special. There's a good chance your carry gear is probably good enough to get you started. So for an example, if you wanted to go appendix inside the waistband, use your shirt for a concealment garment and then have a couple magazines and mag pouches, then this would be totally fine. That's a Shadow 2 carry. These things are kind of cool. These are from the Competitive Shooting Resource Group. They're called the D-Zone. I'm not sure they're exactly legal for IDPA, but they're really, really cool because they take basically any magazine, which is super useful. But if you were to go shoot your first match at an indoor club thing, something like this would be a good place to get started. And in your first match, you are not gonna win it, so just be good with the equipment that you have. So for the gear that I'm gonna be using for nationals, I normally shoot my Bull Armory TAC Pro 5-inch gun. Had this for a couple years now and shot most of my IDPA, all of my IDPA majors with it, and it's fantastic. But in close proximity to this match, I've got another match I need to shoot a Kimber 2K11 for, so I've decided to shoot the Kimber 2K11 for the match. I like the ported guns. The ports are a lot of fun, makes the slide move real fast, but in this instance, having a predictable uniform recoil impulse kind of through that quarter of the year is going to make more sense. And the 2K11 with the MJD grip that it comes with, this grip is absolutely fantastic. So I've had a lot of fun with this gun. Great gun. Now the dot that I use on this gun is the Holosun 507 comp, and specifically for IDPA, I really like the 2 MOA 20 MOA circle reticle because that circle is very close to the size of a zero zone at 25 yards. Makes aiming quickly pretty easy. Because I shoot USPSA and IDPA, my USPSA belt that I use kind of the most is what I really am accustomed to doing. So when they updated the rules recently, they allowed for stuff like this, which is the same double alpha Lynx belt with these X-ray polymer mag pouches and a double alpha max holster. The double alpha setup is very similar to what I'm used to. The holster ride's a bit higher, but the X-ray mag pouches make stowing mags in the pouch super easy. They insert mags no problem. That's almost always something you encounter at an IDPA match, so that's a good thing to have. But more important than that, just the belt allows the gear to not go anywhere. A traditional belt, kind of your mag pouches kind of slide, your holster can slide a little bit. This just keeps all the gear in the same spot. It's not going to improve my shooting in any way, but it's more of what I'm used to, so there's that. The ammo I use is nothing special. It is basically 115 jacketed hollow points loaded to about 1140 foot per second at the muzzle, which is dangerously close to a typical range load that you could buy off the shelf, but because they're hollow points, they're just a little bit more accurate, so there's really nothing special there. And another thing that I did is because I am a tall dude, I'm 6'4", my old IDPA vest would expose all my gear and I'd have to hike my pants up at gear check to keep all my gear concealed, so I did get a custom vest made. There's nothing really all that special about it, but the defensive vest lady put this kind of gray with purple stitching thing to kind of, you know, match the belt. You can't really see the purple stitching, but I got this made and it covers the gear well. The pockets on the front of the vest work great in training for dump pouches, so that's pretty cool. So while all this gear sounds really nice, and it is really nice gear, I can promise you right now I'll get beat at nationals by somebody with more basic setups because the gear absolutely does not win matches. What you should be thinking about right now is don't overanalyze the gear and all the stuff that you have. Just get with the most basic thing that you can get and get out and try and learn, because it's going to be years before the gear actually starts to hold you back. As long as you have belt gear that is safe, then you can go out and compete right now today. So for your first match, if you've got the equipment that you need to get started, I would recommend not buying anything. Go there, show up early, do the safety brief with the match director, make friends with people if you can. Generally, people are going to be pretty approachable, but it does take a few reps of getting to know somebody before people really start messing around with you and being buddies. So make a point of going out to your first match and, you know, going monthly for, you know, 3 or 4 months to get to know people, and then it's really going to be a lot more fun for you. You'll develop kind of rivals that you want to compete with sort of head to head, and you'll try to beat each other in the standings, and that's really fun, really healthy, and a really good way for both of you to try and get better.